Welcome back to the garden in Raleigh, North Carolina. My name's Jim Putnam, and Stephanie's going to join me in this video as well. A few weeks ago, we went down and visited with our friend Michael Carr of Michael Carr Designs down in Atlanta, Georgia, and he let us pick out some pots. And of course, I had to fly my drone in his beautiful display area in Atlanta. Always enjoy going down there and hanging out with him. Beautiful, beautiful containers. His stuff's available. If you go over to his website, on his website, there's a dealer locator, so if you can find some of his beautiful containers. But he, just has so many, and he sent us 9 up here, which I was able to unbox or to take off the pallet right before I left for a trip out of town for a while. And so we're a little behind on getting our pots potted up for the season. But these are the ones we got from him recently. They look great. This thing I'm standing on right now is about to become a patio, and these are going to be integrated. Most of these are going to be integrated into the patio here is our big plan. So we're going to jump right in and show you the things that are going in these individual containers. We're going to start with the biggest container. We make our own potting soil, and this is that soil cube compost combined with a little bit of pine bark soil conditioner. You can usually find well-drained potting mixes, at your local garden center. Something that has a little bit of bark component to it drains better. Of course, you can also use perlite as an additive to create some drainage as well. What I don't want is a super, super, super heavy, peat boggy kind of soil for my shrubs that are going in these containers, because it may end up keeping them too wet. Something that I might use for annual flowers might end up staying way too wet for a shrub. And so I play a delicate balance here, putting flowering things in here with shrubs. So this is a mix that will hold some water. Basically, after I mix, my components together, I'll kind of squeeze it together. And if it will hold together just a little bit, but still break apart easily, I feel like I've gotten a pretty good mix out of it. So it will still breathe well. It'll still hold some moisture, but it won't stay so wet. If I squeeze it and water, and it stays together in a really tight, compact ball, it's probably a little bit too much for shrubs. And I'll put a little bit more bark or something in it, or perlite would work as well. So jumping right in, we're putting in a Crapemyrtle into this container, and I know frequently, and I talk about there's a lot of Crapemyrtles in the city of Raleigh, and sometimes I'm a little hard on Crapemyrtles, but this Delta Fusion Crapemyrtle from the Southern Living Plant Collection with the black foliage and the hot pink flowers, I planted one of these at the old house as well. It's just a great plant, and it's just, we're going to have this in the container as much for this black foliage, and then the winter interest too of its structure without leaves on it will look great as well. We'll be able to keep it in here a few years, so Crapemyrtle's definitely going to grow out of this container, but it can stay in here for a couple of years for sure, and it'll have the hot pink flowers on it during the summertime. Going to use this sweet potato vine, which is the dark foliage but a narrower texture. You'll see these with bigger leaves and then narrower, more lanceolate leaves like this one. There's some Dusty Miller going in here. There's some polka dot plant going in here, and then a variegated sage as well. And I think this combo is going to look pretty good. So let me get on this quickly. In all likelihood, any Crapemyrtle you ever pull out of a container is going to be fairly root bound. They're aggressive rooting, so I'll definitely break this up some. I'm going to get these out of the way. Yeah. I'm going to be pretty aggressive breaking this up, getting these roots headed out in the right direction. Hadn't been in the container too long. This isn't bad for a Crapemyrtle, honestly. I've grown a lot of Crapemyrtles in this lifetime. Rooted tens of thousands of them for other nurseries. Ultimately want a little bit of a lip here to hold water in this container, but I don't necessarily want water to flood, the middle of it either. So I'll leave this fairly level around the edge of it. This amount of soil we put in this container was questionable, but it looks like it's absolutely going to be perfect after adding that Crapemyrtle. So this tricolor sage, we'll take all of our tags. So as an example, this Delta Fusion tag, this tricolor sage tag, and we'll dig a little spot around the edge and put all these tags in this container together. And so they all end up, in here. And if somebody, if we forget what it was, somebody ask a question, or we're about to shoot a video and we've forgotten it, which, would not necessarily forget the name of it, but sometimes it's hard to recall it right when you need it. The tags are in the containers. So that's how we do that. And then we'll write them down as well. Break that up just a bit. So we have our big thriller in the middle of it, and then we'll have a couple spillers, and then we'll have some fillers in here, which are things that will just bulk up and cover some space.
This container is going to be a combination of purples and silvers. The big plant here is Magic Mona Purple. It's a wonderful Plectranthus, great texture and color in the leaves, and then the wonderful flowers that are great for hummingbirds. We've got this licorice plant right here for the spiller part of it. We've got this great velvety textured black dragon coleus, just gorgeous color to offset. I'm going to fill in with a little bit of fuzzy wuzzy lamb's ear, just to have a little accent there. And then these dwarf celosias for a little extra color as well. So I'm going to get going. I'm going to take all these out. Now, just like Jim did, we filled them pretty full with the plants. And there's a chance that at some point there's not going to be enough room for all of those. And if that's the case, we can take out one or two of the annuals because we have plenty in there. But I like to give them a big quick jump by having them plentifully full. All right, so I'm going to try to get the soil to the side so I can get the Plectranthus in there. All right, one note about Plectranthus, be careful. They break really easily. I've learned the hard way. So I'm going to treat it very gingerly as I take it out, I hope, and really hope I don't break any of the beautiful branches that make this such a special plant. All right. Ooh, I know I'm not going to have this deep enough. Ooh, this is where I'm going to break it maybe. I don't want to. I guess I am going to have to take some out and put it in here. All right, so I'm not going to use all of the the 6 and 4 packs that I have there, but I am going to use several of each of the different plants just to make it nice and full. This planter isn't that big, so I don't want to put so many that it's kind of awkward. All right. Okay, here you go, Plectranthus. All right, I'm going to put him in the middle there. Again, leaving about 1 inch so water can have plenty of room to stay before it just spills right out of it. I will have to scrunch these in a bit. No harm, no foul. This is really root bound. I knew that it was going to be root bound because it took us with Jim being out of town, it took us a while to get to this point. And so I've kept it watered for quite a while, and whoo, it's fought me quite a bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle that in there. Again, without breaking the Plectranthus. I like to mix colors and textures, contrast them quite a bit so things just sort of pop. That's sort of our theme in the landscape, if you haven't noticed. But this one doesn't have chartreuse, which is such a prevalent color here. This is going to be super tight, but hopefully some of these things will kind of flop out to the side and really make a gorgeous container as they start to get spread in here. We showed you planting 2 of the largest containers. Now we're going to fast forward a bit, plant them all quickly, and then go over what's in each one.
I really want to point out this container. This is one, you know, I love these volcanic overflow is what it looks like on this teal container. Really love these. They really stand out here in the garden. So this Japanese maple I contorted in a video last fall, and then it's gone. It went dormant. It's come back out. I need to do a little bit of maintenance on it, and I may show that off in a video because there's another thing out here I'm going to do some contorting on. I've got another Japanese maple that I did this 2 years ago. I'm going to start to bend this one back in this direction, so you guys will see that at some point. But this variety is called Dragon Master. We got this from Mr. Maple when we were visiting up there, and again, I'm contorting it into a design here. This container is going to be for shade, so this gold Japanese maple won't get burned out here in the full sun. There are a couple impatiens planted in here as a kind of a hot pink, and then there's a couple Everillo Carex, Carex are grass-like plants, but it'll be a big pop of gold, frilly looking grass coming over the edge as the season goes on. There's a coleus in here. This one is called lime shrimp. It's kind of the perfect name for it. Really interesting coleus. This one is really fun. This is a creeping jenny or Lysimachia, but it's a purple foliage one. Typically we're used to seeing Lysimachia or creeping jenny as a gold with gold foliage, but this purple one should be really interesting. It'll weep all the way down to the ground by the time the season ends.
All right, here we've got a beautiful evergreen. This one, I'm gonna look at this because it's more than my brain can handle sometimes. All right, Chamaecyparis, obtusa, Kanaami, hiba. Whew, that might not be perfect, but it's from Mr. Maple as well. It's just what makes you, it's a golden hinoki cypress. I've got it sort of tucked in the back. In the front, we've got a variegated vinca. It's gorgeous, it's called Illumination. And just a couple, just for a little flowering part of it, we've got lobelia out to the side here. One thing I did notice about this variegated vinca is that it's got some reversion in it. It's got some green stems that you want to get rid of. So anytime you've got, just about any time you have a variegated shrub that's showing some reversion, you want to go in there and get rid of the reverting part of the shrub. That way it keeps this gorgeous variegation. Looks beautiful. Great combination. One other thing I want to say, this can stay in here. It gets to about 4 feet, but it takes a long, long time. So this can stay in here for quite a while. But I really want to be careful of whatever I put in the container with it does not come up against it. That's why I picked short things and brown out the foliage on the bottom of it. I have to be real careful about that, or, you know, this gorgeous conifer isn't so gorgeous anymore. All right, gorgeous start to our containers. Right over here, we've got a color guard yucca. We had it in a different container, and I decided that I would put it in the gorgeous volcanic container that we got from Michael Carr. Looks great. I had this idea that this Glitz Euphorbia could come out in between it, all around it, and look sort of like a cloud of white. It gets 12, 14, 16 inches tall, but it won't obstruct the view of the color guard yucca. It'll just be like a billowy cloud around it. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea. All right, I'm gonna hop over to this one right here. All right, a couple things about this. We've got sort of a deep purple, Mona Plectranthus. Put it towards the back. Some of the other ones we put in the middle. I wanted this to be up against the back of the patio with things in front of it. We've got a few things. We have a Serissa here. Its hardiness is zone 7 to 9, so it's in a container. It might be a bit marginal. It might end up being a bit evergreen as well. I mean, deciduous as well. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not too worried about it. It's just a nice variegated element in the container. This right here, this Cordyline, we have overwintered several winters. it keeps coming back, so I figured I might as well give it a place of honor since it's so determined to stay with us. We've got the Emerald Falls Dichondra here just to come over the front. sort of ties into the variegation, the greens on the Dichondra. And then we've got more sort of purple and reds with the new look celosia. And then this plant right here, it gets huge. It's called amaranth, and it is more for the foliage. It'll get 2+ feet tall if I let it. I'm gonna have to trim it back significantly and regularly. But the outer leaves tend to have this reddish bicolor look to them, and the lower leaves will keep sort of a chocolate purple to it. So although I'm gonna have to do some work to keep it small enough to be in this container, I think it's a great accent to all these other things. The sort of the dark greenish purple stems and leaves and the purple flowers, and it's just beautiful. All right, and our last container that I'm going to tell you about is this scented geranium. It is called Concolor Lace. I saw it and I thought, gosh, that's just such great texture in a leaf. And I love the lime green color as well. Jim had actually said, gosh, we never use scented geraniums in the landscape anywhere. And so I was somewhere and I was like, I'm gonna get a scented geranium. So got this, put some of the Dichondra, that the emerald falls around it to come over the front of it. Also used dwarf ageratum. We have some super tall ageratum in the front yard. This is only going to stay 6-8 inches tall, so that'll be just perfect with that. This will get about 12 to 24 inches. We'll see. So supposedly it has red flowers. The buds don't really show too much red in them, but we'll see. It looks like it's going to be beautiful.
One thing we haven't mentioned is the things that are in these containers. They need to either be for sun or for shade, or all for part shade. Make sure you're picking things for the container that can take like conditions. Otherwise, it's very difficult to figure out where to put your containers. I pointed out in the one container over there that with the Japanese maple, that pretty much everything in there is for part shade or shade conditions. The Plectranthus definitely needs sun, and so we picked things in the container that can take full sun. Last container, this is a piece that got a whole container all by itself. It's in a beautiful volcanic container, a white one, stunning container. This is a Platinum Beauty Lomandra, really industrial grasses that can take heat, can take drought, can take in just amazingly harsh conditions. These are only hardy in zone 8 to 10, and we had one 3 years ago. Had it in a container, and it survived the winter outside here in Zone 7B in Raleigh. And then we got lazy because we figured it'll survive any winter outside. And we finally got a winter that did it in, because when you're putting things in containers, keep in mind, you're probably losing at least one cold zone hardiness. So I consider myself to be in Zone 6 here in my containers, but I'm in Zone 7B, anything that I'm putting in the ground. I hope that makes sense. You're losing, because the roots are exposed above the ground and the pot is going to be more apt to freeze solid more easily than the ground is, you're losing at least a zone. So I'm in Zone 6 and I got my Zone 8 Lomandra killed by not taking care of it. So this is one we'll move in and out. I definitely want to keep this. It held up in a container for 2 years. We barely have to water it, barely have to do anything to it. And it does get little spiky flowers on it. Not the significant part of it. It's just a beautiful variegation, moves around in the wind. Just a great addition here in the garden. We're going to have these are new containers. We have lots of other containers here that have older shrubs in them. We've got lots of things to refresh them with, so there's going to be a container refresh video coming up, and I have lots of older container videos as well if you want to go back and look at some of the combos. We try to do combos where we're picking things in 4-packs and 6-packs, and we're reusing things. We're constantly trying to figure out how to do this as economically efficient as we can, and then have it where we can reuse the plant later in some way. Some of the shrubs and trees and those kinds of things can end up going back into the landscape and be used in other ways. So we're trying to think through that as well, not spending a fortune to do this. So thank you guys for following along. Thanks for watching. And again, there's going to be a container rehab video soon.